Schedule 1 is a game that is taking the internet by storm, leading to plenty of Let's Plays and turning a seemingly unknown developer into an overnight sensation in record time. If you don't know what the game is about, the easiest way to explain it is this. You're a drug dealer selling drugs in a town and the law wants to get you for it. And besides that, the rest of the game kind of just evolves and revolves around what you do and how you decide to approach the game's systems and its citizens. It's really no surprise why it's doing so well. It's a fresh take and has a fun art style that gives me Killer Bean vibes somewhat. But the game is also, unfortunately, racist now, and everyone has to bow down to the activists again. Yep, it's happening, I know. Just like I said in my previous video about No Mercy, which seemingly angered quite a few people, I say in that video, and really, the whole point of that video is that developers should never change their games or visions to meet the needs of activists. Because 9 times out of 10, the people crying about your game haven't even played it anyways. And just by giving into their demands, no matter how small they can be or grand in the case of No Mercy, where the devs actually took the game down on Steam due to online backlash, the point still stands. And what I said in that video is that when you give in to activist demands, all you're really doing is telling them and other like-minded individuals that if they make enough noise and seem scary enough on the surface, they can, theoretically, will anything they want into existence. And this is yet again happening with Schedule 1. So, let me show you what I mean. This indie game is now getting blasted for racism over an achievement called Indian Giver. Yeah, you heard that right. A single phrase has people clutching pearls so hard they're leaving bruises. This is from The Gamer because, of course it is. It's incredibly racist. Schedule 1 comes under fire for one of its achievements. So this game, which is pretty much Breaking Bad meets Grand Theft Auto, kind of, but with more paperwork, is now racist. Oh no, my god. So, this all started when someone named Crow on Twitter, I have no idea who this is, brought it to the attention of Twitter, where they said this and tagged the creator of Schedule 1. Yo, Tyler, I'm loving the game, but can you remove this achievement? It's incredibly racist, the only achievement specifying a race. They then tagged various activist groups to the post like they're signaling a fire, demanding for it to be changed. Which, yeah, it's already eye-roll worthy, I know. One of the groups this Crow brought into the conversation is Indigi Horror Squad, I think that's how you say it. And according to their Twitter profile, they're a group of indigenous gamers who like horror games. Again, I have no idea who these people are either, and please don't harass anybody in this video, by the way. But this indigenous horror squad then decided to tweet this and tag the creator, Tyler, of Schedule 1 and say, "We love Schedule 1, but the Indian Dealer achievement uses a racist phrase tied to harmful stereotypes. We're asking Schedule 1 and Tyler to remove it, impact equals intent." So it's happening again. I didn't think this would be happening so quickly, but weirder things have happened, I guess. Like I said with No Mercy in my other video, we have, yet again, another group now calling for a developer to change their game because it offends them. So what exactly does Indian Giver even mean? Why is this term so problematic, you may be asking? Well, for those who don't know, the achievement is tied to a quest where you promise a rival dealer some product, then you yank it back at the last second. Sneaky? Sure. Racist? Well, that's where the stretch begins. The phrase Indian Giver comes from a misunderstanding in colonial times. Europeans thought Native Americans expected gifts back after trades, which wasn't true. It was just cultural miscommunication, but fast forward to 2025 and it's considered a slur by some, though context matters. The achievement's not about Native Americans, it's about screwing over a drug dealer, but that didn't stop the outrage machine from revving up again. Calling it harmful stereotyping may be a bit of a stretch, especially when you consider that Schedule 1 is a game full of, let's be real, dark humor and sarcasm aplenty. Plus, I also find it quite funny that the only thing these activists find problematic is this achievement. Look, selling drugs and ruining people's lives, well, that's one thing, but I draw the line personally at the so-called racist achievement named myself. Next thing you know, there's gonna be a lawsuit claiming the game promotes racism somehow over an achievement name. I swear, if people put this much energy into solving world hunger, we would have buffet lines on Mars by now. But here's the kicker. The dev, Tyler, didn't mean to offend anyone. They said it was a nod to the game's edgy tone, not a racial jab. But the mob doesn't really care about intent. They smell blood, and when I say mob, I mean the usual suspects who comb through games looking for something to be mad about. It's like they got a PhD and taking it personally. This isn't about justice, guys. It's about power. They want devs to grovel to them, and Schedule 1's getting the full treatment, as we can all see. I can already hear people saying, "Oh, you're defending racism." No, that's not the point of this at all. Look, you don't need to agree with people on everything, but the point remains that I don't think it's healthy to create this new meta forming, if you will, that is trying to make every game any activist finds problematic getting changed is a good move either. This is how you ended up with the games that you all hated clearly from 2020 till right about now pretty much. How many times have players complained that newer games and franchises that were also edgy or had dark humor got modern audienced, for lack of a better term? The best example by far is the Saints Row reboot. Nobody liked that game. It led to millions in losses for Volition, and the entire studio closed down after nobody bought the game because the reboot was only Saints Row in name only, let's be real. And a franchise like Saints Row, which if you ask me is a great comparison to Schedule 1, are both games that are about you playing technically a bad guy if I'm being real with you. You're a crime lord drug dealer who makes money profiting off other people's addictions in both Saints Row and Schedule 1. Yet if you go and compare Saints Row's reboot's humor or the characters, which were all millennial writing 101 dumpster fires, that felt more sanitized than a hospital floor, you'd understand why the reboot failed and died the way that it did. Saints Row's reboot is a cautionary tale if you ask me. Volition took a series about making fun of video games like it. A game that had plenty of gore, weird weapons like DILDOs, I can't even say the word on YouTube, I apologize, and had plenty of characters of all skin colors being made fun of because that's what the Saints Row series was, a parody of crime games and open world stuff like GTA. But once the activists infiltrated Volition, Saints Row became nothing like its previous games. The edge, so to speak, was removed. Everything that could offend got sanded off and replaced by designed by committee slop writing that neither challenged nor made the player feel anything. And at that point, I need to ask the question, why even make a game like Saints Row at that point if you're so afraid of doubling down on what the series was all about? So now, let's circle back to Schedule 1. It's kinda similar in the sense that you sell drugs and build an empire, evade the police, and sell product to make money. The very definition of what Schedule 1 is proves that the game would not make sense if it was not, I guess for lack of a better term, culturally insensitive, or I guess edgy if that word works better for you. But by giving into what these activists want, all Tyler of Schedule 1 would really be doing here is turning his game, which currently has its own unique identity, sense of humor and all of that, into just yet another game that, let's be real, would just get modern audience by people who don't even play the game in the first place. And remember that, guys, most of the time when these activists hate on something and then they throw the mob at it, they never support the thing anyways. How many games that featured what these activists wanted in games have failed already? Why is it that every game that does pander to these mobs seems to always die and end with their studios imploding? Could it be that just maybe these activist type don't actually support anything and instead they just like the idea of things bending to their whim? Yeah, it's the second option clearly, and if you ask me, if Schedule 1 bends the knee here, it just proves yet again that, like with No Mercy and other examples too that I'll show in a bit, that pandering or bending to these types is just a recipe for disaster. And let's also go back to the crux of this thing, right? This Indian giver achievement isn't targeting anyone's race. It's a phrase tied to a specific action in the game. And if you squint hard enough, sure, you can make it sound bad, but you would need binoculars and a PhD in mental gymnastics to do so. Second, Schedule 1 is a game about criminals doing criminal stuff. It's not a PBS documentary on cultural sensitivity. You play a drug lord wannabe, you're not Gandhi. Expecting it to be a bastion of political correctness is like expecting a pit bull to knit you a sweater. Third, and this is the big one, nobody's actually hurt here. Nobody's out there playing Schedule 1, seeing that achievement and going, you know what? Time to be a bigot. Gamers aren't that fragile. The target audience in this case are the same kind of people who've spent 40 hours in Grand Theft Auto just running over grandmas and shooting random people with shotguns because it's fun, and I mean, who can blame them? It is fun. So if you ask me, we can handle a spicy phrase without losing our collective minds. The activists will claim stuff like this is emotional distress, but you know what? I'm calling BS. If a Steam achievement is ruining your day, Maybe log off and touch some grass for God's sakes. This whole thing reminds me of a kid throwing a tantrum because their ice cream's the wrong flavor, except instead of a timeout, they're gonna demand that everyone's day be ruined so they feel more validated. And the saddest part, this isn't even about the phrase, it's about signaling. It's about saying, look at me, I'm fighting the good fight, while ignoring actual issues. If you want to talk systematic harm, go after healthcare disparities or something real. Don't waste everyone's time on a game that's just trying to be cheeky and edgy. This is why, if you ask me, devs shouldn't cave to this kind of noise. History's got receipts, and they're glorious. Take Hatred from 2015, which I can't show footage on of YouTube because it's too bloody, but this one's a classic when it comes to activism hating on a game. Because you play a nihilistic dude on a killing spree, pure shock value. The outrage was biblical, petitions, bans, you name it. But Destructive Creations, the people who made it, they didn't flinch, they leaned into the chaos, marketed as the anti-hero fantasy that it was, and it became a cult hit. People didn't play it to become serial killers, they played it to blow off steam, like every other video game, by the way. Because shocker, I know, art doesn't turn you into a monster, and not bending the knee to mobs is actually a good thing. Why, you may ask? Because gamers respect authenticity over sanitization like these activist types always want from the games they don't even play. Let's not forget about Postal 2, that game had everything, crude humor, over-the-top violence. Even a mission where you pee on people. Activists screamed, oh, bloody murder, but running with scissors, the people who made it, they just kinda laughed at it. They even patched in more ridiculousness, like a cat silencer. A literal cat silencer on your gun. The game's still kicking on Steam, by the way, loved for its unapologetic vibe. These devs, as you can see, they didn't pander. They just gave the middle finger to the perpetually offended, and they won. Contrast that with devs who folded. Remember Cyberpunk 2077's early patches? They tweaked NPC dialogue because a few people on Twitter called it problematic. Did it make the game any better? Nope, just made fans roll their eyes. Pandering doesn't win loyalty, okay? It just signals weakness. Gamers can smell inauthenticity a mile away. So why should devs like Schedule 1's team tell activists to go pound sand? Well, 3 reasons. 1, it kills creativity. Games are art, not morality checklists. If you're scared of offending someone, you're not making Doom, you're making Barney's hide and seek instead. Look at Dead Space or Silent Hill. Those games push boundaries. They made you uncomfortable. And that's why they're still legends to this day. If you sanitize them, well, you would just get forgettable slop instead. 2, pandering fuels the mob. Give them an inch, they're gonna take your whole studio. Remember the original Kingdom Come Deliverance game? Activists whined about historical accuracy because it didn't have enough diversity in medieval Bohemia. And then Warhorse Studios stuck to their guns and said, well, it's based on real history, and then the game crushed their sales. Had they caved in, we'd have gotten a watered-down mess, and the mob would have moved on to the next target anyway. And then if you go look at Kingdom Come 2, where Warhorse did cave to the mob somewhat, now you had random gay romances and not a single Christian church that was explorable. But you sure as hell had an entire fake Jewish quarter in Kudenberg because, hey, that's more important to have explorable than places about the religion that 99.9% of the people in your game worship during that same time period. And 3, gamers don't want it. The data's clear. Most players just want fun games. They don't want a lecture with a price tag. Schedule 1 sales spiked after the drama started. Why? Because people are sick of being scolded. They'd rather support a game that takes risks than one that just grovels all the time. Devs who stand tall and tell activists to get lost, they win big, and devs who kneel get memed into oblivion, or they have their entire studio closed like Volition did with Saints Row. So where does Schedule 1 go from here? If you ask me, the whole thing is just a publicity stunt. Tyler, the creator, no, not that Tyler, the creator, I mean the one who made Schedule 1, could, apologize, but I hope they don't personally. Because they've got a chance to be the next game that said screw that, a game that says, we're here to entertain, not preach, and if they hold the line, they'll keep their fans and probably, let's be real, gain more too. Because the Streisand effect is real. Nothing sells a game like a good controversy, but this isn't just about Schedule 1. It's about the soul of gaming like always. Every time a dev caves to something like this, we lose a little bit of what makes this medium so special. So to every developer out there, make what you want to make. Tell your story, and if someone gets mad, let them. They'll survive, probably. And then this one user would reply to the backlash of Schedule 1 and said this, also loving the game, please don't cater to these fragile dorks that fall over themselves to virtue signal something that has zero impact on their lives, and they're right, that's the point here. They don't actually care about the achievement name being problematic. They just care to make an example out of you so they can use you as a stepping stool until they inevitably go cry about something else bothering them in another game. All you really are to these activist morons is a trophy to them. You're the head of a deer that they want to put above their fireplace amidst all the other trophies they got from other devs panicking and giving in to them too. And I say screw these people, just stick to what your game is, warts and all. Freedom of expression is a thing, and do we really want to sanitize every single piece of media out here because of these people? And where does this end, by the way? Oh right, it never does. They will just keep going, and we all know that. This reminds me, again, recently when another indie dev named Artur Smiorowski, who got attacked by activists because his game Soulash II did not allow for same-sex romance options. Artur's reasoning was because the game's mechanics needed heterosexual relationships to be the default option to work. This is what Artur said to a fan that asked for same-sex relationships in Soulash II. The main purpose of the family system is to create a legacy through children, and given our limited ways to interact with NPCs, I don't think there's a good way to represent relationships, so I don't plan to expand that right now. So, the entire crux of Artur's argument is that the game's mechanics are about you as the player having kids. Which means, despite what everyone says, you need a man and a woman to do that, and then passing your traits and skills to the next generation of your bloodline. Yeah, kinda hard to do if you got 2 guys or 2 girls, since there's no way that would really work, especially in the time period that Soulash 2 takes place in. Of course, this didn't stop the typical types from losing their minds and wanting Artur's head above their fireplace too. But Artur didn't budge. He said, no, if you can't accept my vision for the game I made, then it's not for you, and he never gave in. And now months later, he's still being attacked for it. Recently, he tweeted how he was removed from an indie dev community. Here's what Artur said. I've been informed that an indie dev community I've supported for years since Soulash was in its infancy has canceled me from participating in their events. At this rate, I can't say if any indie dev spaces wouldn't deplatform developers for voicing right-wing opinions outside their communities. So I plan to start organizing one after releasing my next big update. The goal will be to create a bank of knowledge and offer guidance related to indie dev that doesn't require overthrowing the government and creating a communist utopia to build games sustainably, and, maybe more importantly, to help bridge the divide between developers and gamers so that they are no longer split into separate bubbles with gatekeepers holding access to communities and funneling them to left-wing activism. The only type of community that makes sense in gaming is player-centric. Any other starts to have conflicting interests or abuse. It's in everyone's best interest to deliver what players want, except for government and corporate shills. So there you go. So as you can see, this activism that I speak of that is now targeting Schedule 1 currently is not really tied to just flavor of the week or something else. It can, and it will keep going for days, if not weeks, months, or even years. Because it's not about being part of their group. It's about them making an example out of you. That's all it is. How Artur is excommunicated because he wants to uphold his original vision for his game is crazy. You would think that other indie devs would also respect his decision. But let's be real, the only reason they don't is because if they voice support for Artur, it will make them to a target for these activism groups too. But I hear you say, what would happen if we all just said no to these groups? Well, then they would have no power. And that's what they're hoping you don't realize, which is that there's a difference between actual gamers and these activist groups. When gamers boycott a game who they would have bought it otherwise, there's actual damage. But when it comes to activists, they still won't support you even if you do cave in, so at that point you're giving in to people who won't support you anyways. But you're also now showing the people who actually could support you that you gave in to the insane demands of these weirdos. So now you got zero support from either side and you are, as they say in the biz, cooked. It's even happening in anime. Look at this article from Otaku Cart. Feminist groups call for total ban on ecchi. It's not art, it's just softcore. So, in case you don't know, ecchi is a subgenre of anime with sexual overtones to it. We're talking about scantily clad characters, absurdly huge bust size, lots of innuendo jokes, but usually anyway, no actual, like full frontal nudity, but it's still bad because feminists don't like it. And again, like clockwork, do these feminist groups even support this subgenre of anime? Let's be honest, everybody, probably not. They just want to add this subgenre's head to the fireplace too, like all of the others. And if the creators of the subgenre of anime, which is niche already, catered to these groups, who's going to support them in the future? Oh, what's that? Nobody? Well, that sounds like a great trade-off, doesn't it? Except not really at all. And that's really the crux of the argument, which is that when you give into the circus, you may as well become a clown because you're proving to everyone that you cave under any pressure and don't actually believe in what you're saying or doing. Schedule 1 shouldn't change the achievement name, because if they do, these activists will just become even more emboldened, and they will be slapping their bellies following their victory like a fat guy at a buffet like, ooh, that was tasty, now I can go for something sweet. And then this cycle will just keep repeating, over and again, with no end in sight really. And at that point, what even is this, really, you know? You guys really just want all your games to inevitably become just as sanitized and by committee like the early 2020s was? You already know how that turned out. You've seen the carcasses of these failed games that said nothing because they had multiple leashes around their necks. Do you really want to go back there again because of things like this? Or should we just say, you know what, enough is enough. Let games that are clearly edgy like Schedule 1 just continue being what they are. Because the game didn't become popular for being a nice politically correct simulator, did it? Nah, dude, it became the success that it was because it's literally Breaking Bad the game pretty much. And when the game you're playing is about making and selling drugs and ruining people's lives for profit pretty much, the line you think this game crossed is an insensitive achievement title name? Really? These people all need to be put into those colorful gyms where there's no sharp edges and the pools are filled with spongy blocks? Well, they all wear like football helmets if you ask me. I can't imagine living my life being so offended by things that have zero impacts on my life. Like, look, right, I'm Serbian, and the most Serbian representation I got in gaming is Niko Bellic in Grand Theft Auto 4. That dude is a literal war criminal, but you don't see me crying and telling Rockstar to change it. Get over yourselves. Stop being so soft and come back to the real world. There's bigger problems out here like gross over monetization in games probably costing over $100 Canadian that actually matter. If you're so distraught over Schedule 1's edgy humor in a game that you bought knowing that it would be edgy, you're a dumbass. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Just go play LEGO Star Wars and have Bluey playing in the background on repeat if you want to be such a baby about these sorts of things. Stop being weak, stop being stupid, and pull the sticks out of your butts and learn to laugh a little. My god, dude. Anyway, what do you think? Should devs tell activists to kick rocks, or is there a case for toning things down? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them, well, even the unhinged ones, and subscribe if you'd like to, and have a good day. I hope you see something really offensive today, and instead of getting offended by it, you just laugh and move on with your life. Trust me, you'll be better in the long run, and I'll see you in the next one.